Good evening. I'm Jim Stottlemyre, and tonight we're going to do a demonstration on making a bracelet with a metal insert. If we have time, we'll do some, also do a ring, but this might take all evening to do a bracelet. You'll see that this is not an inexpensive project. The first three items are made by well, they're made on CNC machines, and the Bangle guy, that's the name of a company that I think that Wildwood is his company. He's the one that seems like first popularized these as an item. I have another one that was a lot less expensive. The first three are two-piece. You can see that you can pull them apart, Nelson, if you want, but they're two pieces that fit inside each other with a little lip on. You can also get pieces that are just, there's no lip on these. It's just a straight insert, and it's stainless steel like the first ones. And we're talking $20 for the bracelet, $15 for the rings. That last ring was probably $10. Or you can go all out and buy these, which cost 40 cents a piece. So I'm going to pass this one around open and just help yourself to one. Thanks to the club. And hopefully we'll be able to, you may want to use that for the challenge for next month. Okay, people might want to know why we use the metal inserts. I think the first wooden ring I made was in 7th grade wood shop, and it lasted for, I think I got it off the lathe without breaking it, but the way the grain runs in wood, you've got short grain and long grain both in a ring. And rings and bracelets, if you just use turn them out of a plain piece of wood, they will break almost inevitably. So the metal is a lot more durable, and it's comfortable. Some of the people that make without the metal, there's different ways you can try to overcome this breakage. One is to use stabilized wood, which is wood that's been has a resin drawn into it. I've got a piece here. This is half of a piece of stabilized wood. The other half is what we're going to be using for the demo. These pieces of wood that are stabilized, we sold them at the show for what, $20 to $25 for a piece like this, and they're I don't know the entire process. I think they're put in a vacuum, and then it's pressure and vacuum in a pressure pot to push that resin into the pores and cracks of the wood. I've got a couple examples here. That's what we're going to use. This is the center out of one of the blanks that I made before, and you can see it's got the same resin in the filling a void in the wood. Makes an interesting turning. Another way you can try to overcome that cracking, if you're not using the metal, or even if you are, is by laminating. Just making a small piece of plywood. This one's just three segments, and I don't know how many. Somebody else can count this one. I think there's probably 6 or 7 little pieces of veneer cross-grained and glued together. And that'll work to help you keep from breaking one without the metal, but it also works on the metal, and I'll explain that in a second. All these techniques will work with the metal insert also. Another is just to take a thin strip of wood, and you can see how thin and flexible that is. This one is end grain, And you can heat that up, dip it in boiling water, wrap it around something, and put a rubber band around it and let it dry, and then spread it apart a little bit to get glue inside, and you've got a spiral that you can turn. I don't know how strong the end grain piece would be for a ring, but the long grain piece, now this one you can't bend quite as much, but once you heat that, you could wrap that around your finger without any problem at all. Then glue it together. There's also people that use an epoxy insert. I've never done that, but it's a sheet of plastic that they put inside the ring to help give them more strength. And then there's optional materials or other materials. Does everybody know what corian is? Countertop material. That makes a good ring. It is hard. It doesn't. I've never had one break. And you can glue that together. If that's not wide enough, you can put two pieces together. I've done that before, and it's very difficult to see the glue joint.
Do you use CA glue to glue it?
Yes, CA glue. The question was what kind of glue to glue the corian. I use CA glue. Okay, but that leaves it.
Corian real tough on your tools?
It's the question. I'm trying to remember to repeat the question here. Question is, how tough is it on the tools? Yeah, it's a little tougher than wood, but you can cut it with the high-speed tools if you want. I usually use carbide when I'm doing it. So that brings us back to the metal insert. I'm passing around those inserts. I think you can get those from Craft Supply or a lot of different places. We can get them from the Buffalo Woodworking that I just mentioned. The negatives are that they're pretty expensive. I've seen these finished bracelets. They normally sell for, I don't think I've seen any finished ones sell for less than $65. But when you put $20 in the insert and $20 in a piece of wood, you got to get $65 to $100 out of them. And I've seen some go for a lot higher than that. There is another negative for them, and that is the expansion and contraction. The wood, as it gets moisture in it, it gets bigger, and as it dries, it gets smaller. Well, your metal is not affected by moisture, but it's affected by heat. So you've got two completely different expansion contraction things going there, and if your wood has any moisture at all in it when you turn these, you're almost guaranteed that it's going to crack at some point when it dries out, because it can't get smaller. So the one thing, and I'll probably mention that again, is you got to start with dry wood. The best thing is, even if you think your wood is dry, put it in an oven at a low heat, maybe 220, 200, 220, 240 for a couple hours at least. And get that to where it's completely dry. That way when you put it on your metal, it won't shrink anymore to crack, but it'll grow, which gives you another problem, and that's with the gluing. If you put your wood to your metal, you've got it dry, and it's as small as it's going to get, and you glue it with, say, CA glue or whatever glue you're using, and it expands, it's going to break the glue joint. So the glue that, well, I hope I brought the glue. Yes, I do. The glue that they recommend for this is a product called Liquid Nails Home Project Glue, which is a flexible glue. And the thought is you leave some space, you leave a little bit of clearance in there, so that glue, if you didn't have any clearance, you would have very little glue, and when it expanded, it would probably break the joint. But if you leave some clearance between your insert and your turning, it you know, say 50, 60 thousandths total, You fill that gap up with glue, and now you've got enough glue that it can expand and contract. I couldn't find the Liquid Nails Home Project glue, but I did find shoe glue. Now, this wasn't on the list, but this is, if it's good enough to repair a pair of shoes, you know it's got to be flexible and it's got to be strong, and I haven't had any come apart. And that's what I use. The other thing that's important when you're gluing these together is cleanliness. You got to clean any oil off your part. We'll do that when we put one together here in a minute. But it's got to be spotlessly clean, or the glue won't stick. Nelson, I'm going to take some of your thunder here for a minute, and I'm going to tell a story about my cousin Bill, who grew up as a woodworker, and he knew, like we all know, you've got to scuff stuff up you got to scuff it up to give tooth for a glue. You don't scuff these up. But Bill was working wood, and he was good at it, and his glue joints were good, and he went to work for a windshield company, repair company. And he lasted one day the first time he took sandpaper to the inside of the windshield to glue the mirror on. You didn't need to do that. So he left there, got another job in a furniture company that made glass top tables with a nice stainless steel legs. He lasted a day there because he was, you know, you have to sand the glass to get the, well, you don't have to. So last I heard, he was working for a company that makes aquariums. So I don't know how he's doing, but you don't need to cleanliness is more important in all glue joints than getting that what they call tooth to get your glue to stick. They tell you to sand the pen tubes when you're making pens, and I do that sometimes. Sometimes I don't, but I always make sure to get that oil off of them. And I think that's what the main purpose of that sanding that pen tube is get that oil from when it was made. So I don't think the sanding's going to hurt anything, but the glue's going to stick to a nice surface.
Bill,
Yes, sir.
now when you're using to take off that film, what, rubbing alcohol or?
A lot of times I'll use yeah. What I'm going to use tonight is denatured alcohol to take off the oil. I've used acetone before, but I'm not going to use it tonight because I like to wipe the wood a little bit too. And some of this resin, I'm just leery about putting the acetone on the plastic resin in the turning. I don't think the denatured alcohol hurts it at all. Here, pass that around, please. Okay. All right. We already talked about dry, and just oven dry is what I like. It's 220, 240 degrees on your oven, and if you think the wood's dry already, maybe an hour or two would probably be enough. But if the wood's not dry, you might have to leave it in there for a day to get it completely dry. Okay, we had we'll talk a little bit about grain and what looks pretty on a yeah, I don't know if we can you get a picture of that, Lee?
Tilt it back a little so it gets more light. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, that's not real good. How about this side? There. Now that's a really pretty piece of wood. And when we make a ring out of it, what you're going to see is that, which isn't pretty. You got to consider, you got to think ahead. The pretty pieces, the ring's going to be here, and you're not going to see any of it. So all you see on a piece like that is end grain. What you can use, and I've used this before, is this colored wood. And I have a ring here that I'll pass around to show what that looks like in a ring. I cut that on a, that was just a I don't know what the dimension was originally, maybe 1¼ inch square piece I had it, and I cut it off in a bunch of diagonals.
Was this a pen blank?
No, it was bigger than a pen blank. I'm not sure what it was a blank for. Okay, well, let me put that up to the camera one space. I don't know, can you? It's you can see the diagonal as you go around, and it does change as you go around, just as you get different faces on the wood. A piece of wood like this has some nice grain too, but it also has some grain on the side. So this may make a nice ring or bracelet. Sometimes we get lucky and we get a piece of wood like this. It's probably a bottle stopper blank that's got really pretty wood on all four sides, and you can make your ring out of the end grain, which wouldn't be very strong if it didn't have that metal insert. But once you put that metal insert in there, you've got a nice strong piece of wood. Another thing you can do, if you are making a ring, this piece would be suitable. It's just cut it in half and glue it together. That would make it big enough to take a ring out of the end grain. The same way with a bracelet. If you had a nice board that you wanted to use, say a 4-inch wide board, cut it in chunks and glue it together so you'll have face grain on all sides, and the end grain will, I don't know if I'm explaining myself real well, but if we had a board like this and stacked a bunch of them together, then make the bracelet this way, and you'll have the face grain on all the sides. We're going to be making a bracelet in a minute, but when you make a bracelet, if you use a hole saw, you end up with a ring blank. So we'll just pass these couple pieces around. We'll keep that one. Okay, I mentioned a hole saw. When we, there's different ways of prepping a blank, and I think the neatest way is to use two hole saws. One about 3½ inches, and that'd be the first cut. And then cut the center out of it. And you have a round blank with a round hole in it. It's much easier to use. Now, not all of us have 3½ inch hole saws laying around. I've got one, I couldn't find it. so mine does not have a round outside. But you can also cut it round with the bandsaw. Most people have a 2¼ inch hole saw or something in that nature. As long as your hole in the center is smaller than your insert, you're in good shape. So the blank that we're going to use tonight, which John has, John, I'm going to keep that one piece here. This one was made out of that, the other half is going around that stabilized wood. I just split it in half on the bandsaw and squared it up and cut a hole. The one safety tip I've got is when you're cutting a hole in something that's round, or even square. I forget which one got me. I think it was a square when I was making a ring blank out of. I thought, well, I can just hold that on the drill press. Well, you can hold it for so long, and if it catches, it hurts. So this tool here make it much easier. If you got a vise, use your vise, I guess. But I just put it in these hand clamps, and use a bigger set of hand clamps for your bracelet. And you can even take these hand clamps and cut a little notch in them and use them for round objects. Just this might hold a round object fine, but if you put a notch in, it'll hold it even better. Yeah, eventually we're going to start turning something here.
If you don't want to mess up your jaws on that, you can just take double-sided tape and make a wooden insert, something, and stick in there. So when you like a V or something, you could, instead of cutting it into this, just double-sided tape.
Yeah. Comment was said about putting tape on or something, to grab it. Yeah, you can. Okay, when we get to this point here, first thing we want to do is size the ID. And I've got a chuck here that I can put that right in, but I don't know if are we looking in from this side? I'm going to run into the bottom of my chuck, and I want to keep it fairly. I don't want to have it tilt one way or the other, because I'm going to face it to the right thickness at the same time. So what I've done with that chuck is made just a couple little blocks to sit in there. Now I can tighten that up. Is that going to stay? And it extends out past the chuck a little bit, and hopefully it's nice and straight. But we want to size that. Now, I could have cut the center out of those pieces of plywood, but I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to plunge right into it and make it the right size. And to make that cut, I'm going to use a little scraper I've got. And I'm going to need the inserts back, at least the one for the bracelet. Anybody have that one?
Just the bracelet one?
Yeah, just the bracelet one. What? Here, I'll take those two. Yeah, I'll need those in a minute. Thank you, Joe. So we want to make this loose enough to get plenty of glue in. And I said these were two pieces. I don't know if anybody pulled it apart, but the one piece has a little step in it. I don't know if we see that step or not, but it fits inside the second piece. And our goal is to get the inside of this, so it's maybe 40-50 thousandths bigger, a little less than 1/16 of an inch, and then make this thick enough that when our inserts are pushed together, it'll still spin, but it's not sloppy. That's the goal. And that's why I brought two pieces of wood, just in case we miss on the first one. You can measure and mark and all you want. I usually just try. This is about 2.5 inches, and the hole size that I made was 2 1/4, so about 1/8 of an inch on the side we'll take out of there. And we will try it often enough to make sure we don't get too big. That noise is the chuck. The back plate of this chuck, it just floats in there. So right now our wood is thicker than I need, so I can probably make a little bit of a mistake. Okay, just shy of fitting. We'll make it a little bigger. Okay, just about there. Okay, it's just fitting. I still need to get the clearance in there. We'll take a little bit more out. I'm going right to the bottom and into that piece of plywood that I have for a spacer. Okay, can you see the movement there? That's just about perfect. Now, one thing that I saw a fellow do at the show was take his calipers and go inside and push it up against that surface. And he was doing that to see if he was straight. It's hard to judge if you're perfectly straight, but if you get something against that straight edge and then you extend it back 6 or 8 inches, you can tell that's a square cut. So I don't have to worry about the back side of it, which I can't reach, being too small. Now we have to get the right thickness. And to do that, I'm just going to pull across that face with a bowl gouge. And what I'm going to do next, just to make sure that that's in that chuck, I'm going to check my corners. And if they're all the same, then I'd be pretty good shape. This one here is a little bit small. So that's 476, 477. 3 out of 4 isn't bad, so we'll just let it go. And I guess we should know what we're trying to get. I'm going to fit it using these inserts when we're done, but so at least tell me what I'm aiming at here. So check the inside. It's about 350 thousandths. Now you wouldn't have to measure it. You could just keep turning down till it fit. But you want to make sure that you're turning flat, not got a bow one way or the other. You want to make sure that that surface is flat. And looks like I got about a little over a 1/16 of an inch to take off of there. Okay, now I can tell that just by feeling that I am not flat. I didn't come out far enough on my cut. A little bit more. I'm taking my time because you can always take the wood off. It's pretty hard to put it back on. Okay, we're getting really close. What I've got now is just about a friction fit. So might just try the scraper to touch it a little bit. It's exciting, isn't it, to watch somebody fiddle around like this? Okay, I think we're still just a little tighter than what I like it. I'll check to make sure I don't have a bow in it. I do have a little bit of a bow in. Okay. Okay, that fits good. It's just got a little tiny bit of a belly in it. When I take the tool and go across there, I can just get a little bit of a rock. So I want to get the center down to where it's equal to the outside edges, and we'll be good. Okay, that's... If anybody falls asleep, let me know. This is the point where you get tired of sneaking up and you go right past. Guy we were talking about, Joe Wiesnett, he teaches this in his class, and he tells me that his students don't fit them like this. They fit them with sandpaper. Okay. They get it close and they just lay a piece of sandpaper on the table saw and just go back and forth till you get it right. There's nothing wrong with that. So luckily I brought a piece of sandpaper along. If this isn't right, we can hit it with some sandpaper. Okay, it's just a little, it's going together, but it's a little tighter than what I want. So we will hit it with some sandpaper. So we went from the excitement of watching me do that to sanding in front of you. I think we're moving in the wrong direction here.
Could you put a piece of sandpaper against that piece of corian and just hit it flat against the face of the lathe? Would that work?
It might. I don't know how flat this is pretty stiff paper. I don't know if it would. It might work, but I might. Okay, we got it together, and you just got a little bit of a drag there. I'm going to hit that just one more time with paper, and I think we're good to go. All right. And we're going to put that shoe goo stuff on here. Yeah, that feels good. Nice. And let's see what we got here. Does anybody have my glue?
Yeah, do you?
Yeah, please, Joe. Thank you.
Hey, Jim, can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
Are there different diameter bracelets?
Yes, these come in all. Yeah, I don't know how many different ones there are, but there's a. When we were getting this one, there's a whole rack rack full of them, different sizes.
Okay, because when you first started spinning the diameter of that hole, you said, well, if you go too far, well then, I was thinking you're stuck the wood, but you can just move up to the next size bracelet up, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know if we heard that comment, but it's don't worry too much about the size. You can just get the next bigger bracelet. Okay. Now I mentioned having stuff clean, so we're going to clean this. We're going to clean the bracelet, and I'm going to wipe the wood just lightly. I don't want the wood to be wet when we glue it. Thanks for the denatured alcohol, Carol. So. Another one of my pet peeves is when I was quite a lot younger, worked in painting cars, and I keep seeing people put the rags over top of their and go back and forth. That was a no-no in our shop. You didn't want to put any contaminants into your material you were going to paint with. So I'm just getting the oil and stuff off of these.
Jim,
Yes, sir.
where does somebody find something as exotic as shoe glue?
Amazon. I think I bought it.
It's pretty much the same thing. Yeah, it's probably more popular than shoe glue, or I mean shoe glue.
I can't really remember where I bought it. I just remember getting excited when I saw that. I thought that's got to work.
They need to get it with a shoe.
Haven't bought a few of those.
Yeah, let's see. Don't have enough fingers for that. Try it again. Trying to be safety conscious here, but at home I would have just used my fingers. We're going to put a little bead on the inside of this. You don't get a chance to put any more on, so you might as well put plenty. The glue's a lot less expensive than the wood and the metal. Smells good too. I'm going to put some on both of these pieces. I'm just going to make sure I got it the whole way around. Put this in and spin it. There'll be a lot of squeeze out. There's nothing wrong with that. It does come off easily. Okay, that's pretty good. I can still feel it a little bit loose there. And clamp this together. If you guys all come back tomorrow, we'll finish this one. That's a...
What time? Is that the setup time overnight?
Yeah, that's what I do it with. I guess it would be nice to read the instructions and see what it really says. Wash hands immediately. Don't smell. Okay, it says 3 to 4 hours. So once we get that glued, I always left to sit overnight. I don't think glue can get too dry. I'm going to take this chuck off and put another chuck on and show you what we do next. Let's see. Well, that worked easy. Usually I have to put one of my chisels in there to get that to happen. Once that metal's in, you can, I've got one that's finished, we're going to pretend is like that. You can put that on your small chuck, and I wouldn't tighten it up very tight, but I would use a chuck like this to get that from squared around. I put it on there. There's a special tool you can make. I've got 2 of them here. And what this does is allows you to space that away from your chuck. And now you can work on it a little bit better. I've got 2 different thicknesses depending on how far I want to space it away from the chuck. So that's what I would use to turn the OD round and get it to size. And we're going to take it down till it's just about even with these metal lips. The smaller and lighter it is, the better it'll feel for whoever's wearing it. This one's Nancy, so I'm sure she won't mind if we just scuff it up just a little bit. That's 100 grit shouldn't make it too bad. Okay. All right, that looks good. Not really good, but the way I put the finish on, you just saw me turn that. That was record speed for turning one. Nelson, you did. Now we're going to go back to the other chuck. I'll show you how I finish it. I finish them on a jam chuck. And this one here, be nice if it runs fairly true. I'll put it in the same as it came out, but that doesn't always guarantee that it'll work. That's not bad. Okay, that's what I thought was going to happen. Trued it up, and it's just a little bit small. So, put a piece of tape around it.
Well, this is a good tip, Jim.
What, the tape? I've never used that before, Joe.
It works.
The other thing nice about tape, I do it on purpose on the, when I do a ring, I'll show you those tools if we have time. When you do your super glue, you can peel that tape off a lot easier than get it off of the block. Let's see what we got here. Oh, that's pretty good. So I'm just going to put some finish on this, get the old finish off. And you can sand right down into that metal. It's not going to hurt a thing. In fact, when you're turning that down, a lot of people like carbide tools because it doesn't dull your tools that much when you hit that stainless, or they do make these in copper also. You can use whatever tool you want. You just might have to sharpen it a little bit more. Okay, we're going to say that we got the old finish off of that one. Yeah, that's got pretty much all the old finish off of it. I'm going to use a super glue finish on this. And I know people have different preferences about what viscosity super glue they use. I'm just going to use a medium. Let's see. And the what I normally do is just take a piece of paper towel and let's see the speed here. And all it takes is a couple drops. And make that wet. You want an ad for your Easy Bond glue, John?
I don't need any. I don't need any more. Don't does that.
I'm just going to put, oh, I don't know, 6-8 coats on there. We're going to sand it off, most of it. I used the fine glue, and it sometimes you get a really nice finish right off the glue with it. This, I haven't been lucky enough to get a real smooth finish with the medium glue, but it does build up a lot faster.
You might be putting too much on.
John thinks I'm putting too much on, but I think I'm going to get a good finish out of it anyhow. I don't like sanding through it. Let's put a, still got a little paper towel, might as well put a couple more drops on. All right, that's good enough. We'll use this one. A little bit of water. This isn't the piece of paper I was looking for. I must have left it at home. I usually start with about 400 wet. And all I'm trying to do is level that out. And I think I've done that already. It didn't take much at all. So these, I can't remember the brand name of this this stuff here, but these are all different grits. We're just going to go through them.
Is that micro mesh, Jim?
I know. I thought micro mesh was a sandpaper, Joe. I don't know. Is that what it is? Okay. And I'm just lightly doing that, and I'm making sure to get out on the metal as I go. If you stay on there, you'll see, I don't know if you guys can see that on the camera or not, but there's just a little bit of a white slurry builds up. That is that's the super glue sanding off. When you buy this, it comes with a little color chart with the grits on. You want to keep a hold of that. Because when you drop them, they are hard to tell, at least for me.
What I do is I take the stack of them and make a D mark on it, so that when I stack them, I just look at the end and see and build that pyramid back
up. Okay. Nelson, what do you think of that finish?
It looks real good from here. Let me inspect it.
You can, don't look real close. I mean,
It's really good.
okay.
Couldn't get any
You'd be happy with that? Okay. Nelson says we can't get any better. I'm going to show you how to get better. That's with this. This is used to polish paint jobs on cars after a new paint. There's other kinds of plastic waxes or plastic polishes out there. We'll put another. It's got abrasive in it. You have to keep shaking it up.
Wow.
Now,
That's better?
you tell me.
I believe you're right, it is a little better. Makes this color a little clearer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to pull that off and pass it around. We're going to pull that off.
Now we're pulling it off.
Okay. We don't have time. Yeah. We don't have time to do a ring, but I'll just show some of the tools I use when I'm doing a ring.
Jim, I have a question.
Yes.
What material did you make your jam cups from?
That was a leg off of a pallet. I don't know. It's some kind of. Does anybody know what that is? It's not wood. It's probably closer to cardboard, or. Okay. Yeah. I just something came on a pallet and had 4 legs like this, so I grabbed them and started using them for jam chucks. Okay. When I do a ring, I would start with this chuck and a ring blank, either round or square like this. I knew that was going to happen. And just clamp that in there, and like before, I've got a little spacer so that it doesn't go the whole way down in the bottom. And almost all the rings are bigger than 3/4 inch diameter. So I drill a 3/4 inch, just using a Forstner bit, 3/4 inch hole, and fit it just the same as we did before. Fit it, and if I'm using one of those, I don't fit it as loose for a couple reasons. Because I don't think that being smaller, it's not going to expand and contract quite as much. And if I use one of those little metal ones without the lip, I don't like seeing that glue joint. So on those, sometimes I've just put them together with super glue and they seem to hold okay, depending on the material you're using. Still, it's got to be dry. For a jam chuck for the rings, I do all my turning and sanding and finishing on a jam chuck. Now those who've been out to my shop might recognize this. I've got lots and lots of rungs that I've made, and I just put that rung between centers, and I'll slip the ring on there and I'll turn it with it on the wood, and then I'll pull it off, wrap a piece of tape around, and push it back on and do the finishing. And the rings are, I mean, they go pretty quick. You want to get just a thin coat. People don't like a real big diameter ring on their finger. It bothers your hand. So you take those down as thin as you can. I will talk one more thing here, and then I think we're going to be finished. I brought if you don't have chair rungs laying around and you want to make a jam chuck, just get a piece of dowel. This is a piece of an old chair. It was one of those I think bent wood chairs, and there were some straight pieces in, so this one's still bent. If you put that between centers and turn a taper on it, the way I do it is either mark or just use a block of wood on a number 2 taper. Measure, set my calipers for both ends. Set the decide, and then with this between centers, I'll use the same. You can measure and put marks on if you want, but this, and I'll turn that to where I got a taper, and you can just drive that right into your headstock. It's a quick way to make a jam chuck, and that's plenty long enough to do 4 or 5 rings on. All you need to do is duplicate the taper on any number 2 taper onto this piece of wood. And guys, I think that's about it for questions. Anybody want to try to stump me? All right, thank you.